Now, I have been using different AI tools for over a year, and these tools save me at least 30 minutes every day or hours each week. And I have formulated a 9-step plan to help you spend less time doing the things you don't like to do. This process is gonna help you learn any AI tool because whether you like it or not, people are using AI to get more work done, make more money, and build their personal brands. And if you don't, you're gonna be left behind without you even realizing it. So sit up, pay attention, because I'm gonna give you everything you need to know to make life easier using AI this year for free right now. So as I said, I have picked 9 different things or steps or parts of a process or really just things you need to learn that will help you change your approach and the way you think to implementing AI into your life and saving time, whether it's with work or with hobbies, so you can get back to doing the things you love. And I gotta be honest, these are not like hard or technical things. I am not a computer science person or have any sort of technical experience or background. These are things that you can do right now for free and are easy to implement. So that's kind of like where I'm coming from, I guess, as making this video. And like, I kind of just get right into it. Like step number 1, and I have these written down. Let me show you. You probably can't read my handwriting, so that's okay that I show it. But like the first point that you need to understand is recognize that tech exists to make your life easier. Like that is the point of tech. That is actually the point of generative AI. And I think like we can often see generative AI and it sounds super scary and to most people or to some people. But I think the reality is the people who are looking at generative AI as a means to get more work done or as a tool to boost their productivity are going to be the sort of people that win. And so specifically, like an example, if that's not you or you're not a believer in this, let me, I guess, just share an example. Like say you're a carpenter way back when, and you were a carpenter before, I'm not a handyman by any means, but before a certain sort of saw was invented. And, this saw was invented and some carpenters adopted it and some carpenters did not. And quickly it became clear that the carpenters that did were able to just produce more carpentry or more woodworking, I guess. And because of that, those carpenters who were either against learning the tool or saw the tool as a bad thing or a tool that could replace them, I think that those carpenters ended up running out of work because of the people that did. Or like a silly example I use as well, like people that like to like really hate on text-based generative AI tools, things like ChatGPT or Copilot or numerous others, like instead of utilizing Google search, they're like, oh, well, I can just Google search, and do that thing. And to that person, I said, well, you could, go to the library and check out a book and read the book to get your answer as well. But no, Google is faster. And in the same way, generative AI can oftentimes, given it's accurate, right, can be faster than Google searching and to searching through these different sources. And now you might say, okay, well, the generative AI that I use isn't as good as my Google searching. Well, we are going to get into that. That is part of our 9 steps here and things to implement on how you can improve that. And kind of moving into number 2, as it ties really closely with this, is like truly understanding the purpose of generative AI. And I understand that like with everything there can be bad apples and, scenarios where it could be harmful, but like generative AI is here to help you. Like it is not this evil menace, Armageddon, end of the world. They're going to take over robots are taking over. Maybe I'll eat my words and that's fine. If you disagree with me, you can let me know down in the comments. But like generative AI is designed as a tool to help you like do less of the mundane tasks. And in case you're wondering, still who I am, my name is Griffin Lickfeld. I am a low-code software developer and consultant. I specifically work with the Microsoft Power Platform and customize that for kind of what we call like enterprise level businesses or really big companies. And so I work regularly with Copilot, like Microsoft's generative AI product and the suite of things that is. And I think that even just the name Copilot, and Microsoft has shared this before, but even just the name Copilot, like it is not named Autopilot, right? It is named Copilot in a sense of it is simply there to help assist you and save more time so that you can get back to doing the things that make you good at what you do. And that might be confusing. So let me explain. Like I don't know, it's an easy example as far as business goes is like with salespeople. Say I'm a salesperson and I sell cars, I guess, just as an example. I mean, the time that I'm spending, say, writing up emails or managing leads or, reaching out to people or, handing out my business card or like all of these things are not what make me an effective salesperson. All of these like mundane tasks are things that take away from me being a salesperson, which is like being and talking to a customer and selling and building a relationship with them and explaining how what I'm selling meets their needs or what, everything that sales entails. Okay, I just hit this and it's popping a lot. So I'm just going to go ahead and move this, but I thought the candle was a cool idea. But like everything that sales entails, everything that your job entails, you're probably not like your job title is probably not to write emails. Your job title is not to, XYZ, fill in the blank, as I can't think of another example off the top of my head. But like this way you can spend less time doing those mundane tasks and get back to doing what makes you good, like what makes you valuable and what makes you a good employee and the things that you like to do. Like I said in this intro, like these aren't just things to help you make more money, but help you do things that are less boring, less mundane and more exciting and more creative and more, people will call it, like a higher level of thinking. And so like understanding the purpose of AI and how, I think is foundational before you can kind of step into this next point, which is learning how to use AI in your life. And this might sound like a big point, but I want to make it really simple. Like understanding it's actually worth your time to sit down and brainstorm, okay, what are some mundane tasks that I'm doing and how can I now implement this into my life? And specifically, I want to give a caveat, like make an effort to conform available AI tools to your life or to your work and to not conform your life to the available AI tools. I hope you understand that distinction. Like find AI tools that work for you and don't modify or go, out of your way to try to fit in certain tools and do this, because ultimately if you are using AI incorrectly, it is a waste of time. Like if using generative AI, while I will say there's a learning curve, and I think learning that learning curve is, or like being on that learning curve is beneficial over the long run, but generally incorrect use of a really cool tool is going to be unproductive. And so like actually finding the correct places to put AI into your life. And so like understanding how you should actually use it and the place that it has. And this kind of is very closely related to my next point, which is now, okay, understanding what generative AI is and how I should approach implementing this into my life. Now, step 5, let's learn where I can put and use AI in my life. And so I kind of want to just like spitball some examples in case you aren't familiar with the different tools or different things like that and you are still watching. Like I already used the example of writing emails, but really writing any sort of text can be beneficial, potentially beneficial to utilize generative AI tools. And I'm not saying plug something into ChatGPT, copy, paste, send the email, or hey, write me a novel, copy, paste, publish. I'm not saying that. But something that it is still really good for is creating either an outline or a rough draft, a version 1 of the ultimate like end version of what you're looking to do. And my chair is really squeaking. Hold on. And like, so for myself, how do I use it? I mentioned in the intro, I use it to save myself a ton of time. I use it to convert my YouTube transcripts. So I make YouTube videos, and a lot of times I have some associated blog posts that go with the videos. So I use generative AI to take my transcript and create a search engine optimized blog post from the video transcript. And not that I copy and paste it and publish and 2 minutes I got a blog post done, but it honestly was able to get me 90% of the way there, and I just needed to proofread it or cut this out or add this hyperlink or and so I'm able to save a ton of time as opposed to creating a YouTube video from scratch and creating a blog post from scratch. As well, like I use it a lot to brainstorm different ideas, whether for YouTube titles or YouTube video topics, or maybe even what my thumbnails should kind of look like and different things, because there's something about it, just like language in general. Like, how can I communicate something in an effective way? Specifically, with a YouTube title, I guess is a silly example, but like, how can I communicate an emotion in maybe as simple and as few words as possible? And a lot of times it might not be natural for me to like think of every possibility off the top of my head, as opposed to asking a generative AI tool for, hey, here's the topic of the video. Give me 100 top YouTube video titles off this topic. And I can read through them. And maybe I take a piece of this and, I like the word on this one, and piece them together. And then I say, hey, here's the title I'm thinking. Give me 100 different versions of this one. And I can continue to refine it. And like, that's, I guess, another example. And I'm hoping like in me saying this is giving you ideas. Another one for, on this channel, I make kind of a couple different things. I make this Power Talk series where I interview different guests. I have a kind of a survey I ask guests to fill out so that I can maybe understand a little bit more about them that's not maybe information that's already on their LinkedIn profile. And I take what they submit and I plug it into ChatGPT, and I use it to kind of help brainstorm or give me some ideas of questions I'd want to ask them. And I do not just copy their ChatGPT's 10 questions, paste it, and that's what I ask them. But it gives me ideas, or I pick and choose different things out from that, as opposed to just starting from scratch. And I was able to cut down like the pre-interview process from probably about 2 hours to about 30 minutes. And I mean, I'm doing at least one of those a week. So just that, it saves me an hour and a half of work, or of, you might call it hobby, right? A side hustle hobby, like a week. Just that, just the one solo use of a generative AI tool. Another, I know there's tools, I haven't personally used them, but I know there's tools that you can use to clean up your calendar and combine different meetings from different sources and all sorts of things. You can use all sorts of image creating tools like DALL-E or Microsoft Designer to create images for a PowerPoint deck or for an Instagram post or for a LinkedIn post or different things, as opposed to scrolling on Google Images, waiting to find the perfect thing, only to find out that it's the wrong file type, or there's, a watermark over it and you can't use it. Like, these are, instead you can just utilize a generative AI tool to do that. So like, I challenge you, like, really take the time and the exercise to like sit back and think like, okay, now that I understand what the purpose of generative AI is, how now can I use it in my life, and specifically where, and researching different tools. And there are numerous, even free tools out there for you to use. So like, that's my advice. That's kind of my thoughts on that. Moving on to number 5, and I guess this is a great transition, is to learn tools available. I've already mentioned numerous, tools, things like, the text-based generative AI models, which I think most people are familiar with, things like ChatGPT, things like Copilot. There's video based. I mentioned image based already. There's some in like Adobe that I use for my thumbnails, specifically like I could upload a photo. This is actually exactly what I did for this thumbnail. Before I recorded, I took a photo of myself, and then in Adobe, I can say, click remove background, and it cuts me out, and then I can throw it on the thumbnail. And that is exactly what I did as a part of the thumbnail of this video. And so you have things like that. There's like audio engineering AI tools where you could plug in an audio file and it cleans it up and gets rid of the background noise. There's, like I mentioned, there's calendar ones. There's things like Opus Clips, which again is another, content creator one, but it might not apply to you. But what this is able to do is it's able to take like, say, a 40-minute recording like this and spit out 10 to 12, YouTube shorts or short form content, the vertical TikTok sort of content, and add captions to it and kind of provide these different suggestions. Like instead of me having to go through and create 10 shorts, I could get a couple out of that and save myself a lot of time. So like these are the examples that are pretty relevant to me and that I am aware of. And I haven't, like I said, used all of them, but use a lot of them to save myself time. So I encourage you, step 5, learn the tools that are out there. And I think it would be worth your time to at least research that a little bit. Number 6 is like, I think where we might spend the majority of our time, specifically like if you don't feel like generative AI is good, I will say to that, it's only going to get better. And you're right, it's not perfect. But I will say if you think generative AI is useless, then you're probably not watching at this point. Maybe you are. And if that's the case, I'm glad I've swayed you a little bit. But if you think that generative AI is useless, I can tell you the problem is not AI. The problem is what's called your prompt, or you, and what you're telling the generative AI to create. And so number 6 is to learn the art of prompting, or I don't know if it's an art or a science, maybe a little bit of both, but depends on who you ask. There's a lot of different methodologies for creating good prompts. And there's like a whole, I don't know if you'd call it an industry or a whole segment of people out there who specialize in prompt engineering, as it's called now. And I am by no means a prompt engineer, but like, I think we could get too much in the weeds on prompts, and I don't necessarily want to do that as a part of this video, but I want to give you a couple frameworks that you could potentially follow to at least help you draft better prompts so that you could start having a better generative AI experience. And so the first one, I am going to use a Microsoft one. I don't love it, but I think it's beneficial. And I took Microsoft, they give you like 4 criterias. I want to take what they've said and actually turn it into 3. I think it's a little bit easier and more like beginner friendly. But what they say is your prompt should have 4 things. And the first is a goal, or basically what you want the generative AI tool to create. Do you want it to create a Word doc, create a PowerPoint, write an email, etc.? The next is context. And basically this is, I'll probably say this a couple times, all the color, around the goal. Who is this? I'll use the example of an email. Who is this email for? Who is writing this email? What time is this email? Like what time maybe of day? What's the tone? How friendly are we? Is this a business relationship? Is this a friend relationship? Is this a meeting appointment? Is this, a sales lead? Like all this sort of stuff, right? All the context around. They then say you should provide a source, or basically explain where you want the generative AI tool, or more specifically Copilot, to get its information from that it uses to create its answer. And then the last is expectations, which I don't think I can really explain this well besides just saying it's extra context. But maybe just further expectations that you have on what you want the Copilot or the generative AI tool to create. Now, kind of taking this, I want to change it a little bit. And I want to give you 3. And the first one being a persona. And so specifically as a persona, speak to who you are, or who Copilot is, personifying, or who the generative AI tool is role-playing when it creates its answer. And I think this is really easy, and just add as a blank, comma, and then write your prompt. As a sales team member, as a executive vice president of sales, as a father, as a sibling, as a grocery store shelf stock worker. Like, just, it's a simple way to add a lot of context and sets up, like, in an easy way, sets up the context for the generative AI tool. The next being context, the second of the three pieces. And like I said, I already kind of shared, it's the color of, everything that you want the Copilot to do, of the generative AI tool to do. And like, explain, let me parking lot this actually for a second. I think that people, and myself included, are naturally really bad at prompts, because how you communicate to a generative AI tool is fundamentally so different than how we communicate to people. And specifically, like, when you're talking to somebody, I mean, we all know, like, sometimes text messages or emails can be misinterpreted because, you don't have the tone of their voice, their body language, or different things. But even with things like text messages back and forth, you have, like, the context of why you're messaging them. Like, you're reaching out because, they're either running late, or you're heading over to their house, or this email because you had promised in a meeting you're going to deliver this or whatever. Like, you have all sorts of extra context that we don't even consider or think about, that when you're talking to a person, they already have. And generative AI tools do not have any of that. They do have the ability to have the context of your message thread, largely, depending on the tool, I guess. But, popular tools like generative AI and Copilot, if you send a follow-up message, it interprets the entire message thread. So it has that context, and, if you're several messages in, sure, that definitely helps. But in your first message, like, explaining every possible detail that you can think of, any extra detail is huge in its ability to understand what you're talking about. Now, the third point is your goal, right? What are you wanting it to do? I think an additional thing to add here is, like, even, like, the type of goal. So specifically, what do I mean by this? I mean, like, instead of saying, create for me, I can't think of a good example, but basically what I'm trying to say, is, like, do you want the generative AI tool to spit it out, its text? Say you ask it to write you something. Do you want it to spit it out in a paragraph format? Do you want it to spit it out in a bullet point format? Do you want it to be a table that you can easily copy and paste into Excel? Do you want it to be, have bolded words and non-bolded words? Do you want it to be, professional? Do you want it to be, formatted, or is tweetable in the sense that it has a certain character limit? Or, like, these are all different things that you can add to your goal to help it understand what it is that it's trying to achieve. Instead of just saying, write me something insightful about X, as a Twitter influencer, write me something about blah, 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 for a tweet that I can post that is limited to X amount of characters and uses a couple of emojis and hashtags, right? Like, this is, like, that's going to give you a way better tweet than, just saying, write me something about blah, 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 blah. So that's, I guess, where I'm coming from. That's, like, an introduction to prompting. I have some videos on this channel that go in a little bit more detail, but they kind of just also explain everything I've explained here. So I think this is kind of your one-stop shop. But if you are interested, you can definitely check out more videos on prompt engineering if you would like. But I'm going to go ahead and just kind of keep us chugging along, moving along to number 7, which I think ties into really well into, understand what it can do through your prompts. But number 7 is understanding and learning what Copilot or generative AI tools cannot do. And so I think there are several things that these tools are bad at. Oh my goodness, I just dripped. I think that, like, something that these tools, a silly example I think about is, like, if you tell a generative AI tool to not do something, like, hey, write me a paragraph and do not include any hyperlinks for the sources, because say you want to really easily copy and paste it. I find that if you tell it to not do something, it's kind of like the old saying, like, don't think about a purple elephant or whatever. Maybe no one's heard that, but I've heard that. And then all you can think about is the purple elephant, right? Like, it's kind of in the same thing. Large language models at this point, they're just looking at the words in the sentence that you sent. And so it's saying, hey, we have write, we have paragraph, we have purple elephant, we have hyperlink, we have, this topic. All right, let me take all this information and go and put something together. It doesn't necessarily understand at this point in time, like, the word don't do this, at least in my experience. You might completely disagree, but that's fine. And so I think that, like, that's a silly example, but just like learning what generative AI cannot do and what it is not good at is just as important as learning what it can do and how to make it better. And I guess that's kind of just part of prompt engineering and getting better at prompts. And I will be honest, this is something that just simply takes time. Like, when I started using generative AI over a year ago, I was not good at it. It's not necessarily intuitive for a lot of people. I feel like some people talk about it as if it is, but I don't think it is. And I think that, like, if you actually want to use generative AI tools to make yourself more productive and save time, then you have to get good at it. And so understanding over time, what it can do and what it can't do is point number 7. Number 8, I think it would be silly for me to not, bring this up, but like, it's really important for you to understand the risks of using AI. And this is not like a scare tactic, I guess, or a scare tactic video, but basically I just wanted to share, in case you are unfamiliar, there are secure generative AI tools and there are what you might call unsecure generative AI tools. Specifically, what I mean by that is when you're talking to ChatGPT, for an example, OpenAI is using those conversations to further train the large language model, or the piece of tech that, the computer, so to speak, that is creating these outputs and spitting them back to you. So it's using these conversations that you're having, to further train the model. And so with that being said, like everything, you should not share sensitive personal or employer or business information in these, what we might call unsecure generative AI tools, because these are being used to train the model. These conversations are being stored in some way. Now, there are some secure generative AI tools that are specifically not used to train the model and do not store the conversations. Shameless plug for Microsoft and Copilot. So if your company or your business utilizes Copilot for M365, or basically the tool, the Copilot that allows you to create Word docs, that's inside of Microsoft Office, that allows you to create Word docs, PowerPoints, and all sorts of different things. Like, if your company has that enabled, those conversations are not training the Copilot or the OpenAI large language model, because they kind of sit on your company data and all that sort of stuff is secure. I'm not necessarily getting into the details of how all of that works, but really I just wanted to draw your attention to the fact that there are secure models and there are unsecure models. And so making sure that you are at least aware that this is a thing. And, I don't know if it needs to be said in 2025 that, like, hey, you shouldn't share sensitive information on the internet. So like, that's, I guess, kind of point 8, kind of short and sweet. And number 9, I guess I want to kind of sit here for a little bit and just, like, I don't know, we're having a brainstorm therapy session here with number 9. Like, number 9 is to think about how you can use AI to help others. And while I would say let's take a completely Good Samaritan approach here and, hey, how can I use it to improve other people's lives just because we care about other people? Yes, that's awesome. But I also, I guess, just wanted to, like, my interest has been piqued a lot recently in how can I use a generative AI tool or create a custom generative AI tool or use, the large language models that are out there and licensable to create custom generative AI tools that really meet a specific need in the world, whether it's for other people or for businesses. And because I think generative AI has opened up a world where, if you can spend some time learning it and getting to understand it, it doesn't take long to become an expert in it in today's day and age, right? It isn't something that's been around forever. And so if you wanted to start now, you could really learn to understand how it works. And I think there is a lot of businesses to be made and a lot of problems to solve in the world that use these. And if there's ways that you can, leverage that, I guess. And so that's kind of my thoughts. I know a lot of people, one thing that I've seen is people trying to create, mobile apps that have a really targeted generative AI purpose. And so they'll create an app and be able to license that, or say it's a subscription model, and create a business out of that. And so if you're here this far, you obviously care about pushing yourself and learning, and how generative AI is going to impact you. I'd encourage you to think about it and brainstorm. And I would actually say, if you are this far, you are a real one. And there's, I really appreciate it. And if you have a serious idea, reach out to me. Let me know in the comments. If you feel uncomfortable sharing your idea there, that's fine. But reach out to me. I'd love to hear your idea. I want to get involved with, if there's different things out there, that problems that I could help solve utilizing generative AI tools. I want to try to get involved. I have some ideas of my own, but haven't been able to follow up on them, I guess. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at. This episode is a little bit shorter. Like I've said several times, this is the Power Talks series. If most of the time I have guests on this show and I bring them on and really just try to tap into their expertise and ask them questions about their career, their soft skills, what they love about their job, and all sorts of different things, how they're utilizing generative AI, how they feel like generative AI is going to disrupt the workforce in a positive or potentially negative way. And so if that is interesting to you, be sure to subscribe and check out the rest of the series and every week as these episodes come out. But you were blessed with just a solo episode of me today, and just kind of talking about this. So hopefully you enjoyed. I kind of wrap up every episode with an after hours happy hour segment of the show. I didn't really have anything prepared. Right now it is, at the time of recording this, it is the holiday season. And so I'm excited to travel and see family and all sorts of things there. So I guess that's what's going on with me and things outside of work and outside of YouTube. So thank you to you for sticking to the end of the video. Truly, if you have been here for 30 plus minutes just listening to me talk, you are a real one. If you are listening this far, be sure to let me know down in the comments down below. Drop your favorite red emoji. Drop a red emoji if you've made it this far in the comments, and I'll be sure to know why you put that down there. So thank you so much for being here. My name is Griffin Lickfeld, the host of the Citizen Developer channel. And I'm excited to connect with you in the next one.